Chapter 1. On the Upper Deck. The novel begins with the steamship Cappu sailing on the Pasig River on its way to Laguna. While the passengers on the upper deck discuss subjects regarding the lake and the slow pace of ship travel, readers are gradually introduced to some characters of the novel such as the jeweler Simon, Doña Victorina, Ben Zaib, Don Custodio, Padre Irene, Sibila, Camora, and Salve. Chapter 2. On the Lower Deck. On the lower deck of the steamship Cappu, Basilio and Isagani converse with Don Basilio. The two students tell the Don the plan of the students to establish a Spanish academy. Although the two students are hopeful that the academy would be approved by the Governor General, Don Basilio expresses his pessimism. Chapter 3. Legends. The wealthy passengers of the steamship amuse themselves by telling stories and legends of interesting places and spots along the river. Padre Florentino recounts the legend of Doña Jeronima, while Padre Salve narrates the story of a Chinese infidel who was saved from the Caymans by asking Saint Nicholas for help. Ben Zaib then asked the captain the exact spot where a man named Ibarra was killed. While pointing to the exact spot, Ben Zaib observes that Simon is silent and thoughtful. Chapter 4. Cabezang Tales. Cabezang Tales with his family and father cultivate a piece of land. From the hardship they experience and sickness they experience, Tales' wife and eldest daughter die. When he is about to harvest his crops, a religious order lays claim to the land and demands an annual rent. Tales eventually agrees to the arrangement, but every year the rent keeps going up until he has had enough. He goes to the courts and demands that the religious order presents some proof of their ownership of the land. After a long and expensive litigation, Tales loses the case. He is unfortunately abducted by bandits demanding ransom. Not enough money is raised for the ransom, so Julie, the daughter of Cabezang Tales, borrows money from Hermana Penchang. To pay the debt, Julie agrees to work for the Hermana as a servant.
Chapter 5. Alcachera's Christmas Eve. On the way to the town of San Diego, Alcachera endures abuse and maltreatment from the Guardia Civil. He is hit with a rifle butt and then he tells them he has forgotten to bring his cedula with him. He is detained and beaten up again when the light of his caramata goes out. Basilio arrives at San Diego and after making his way to Capitan Chaga's house, he receives the news that Cabezang Tales has been abducted by bandits. Chapter 6. Basilio. At Christmas Eve, Basilio enters the forest previously owned by the Ibarra family but has been sold to Capitan Tiago. In the middle of the forest stands a baleta tree where he visits the grave of his mother Sisa and a stranger. He remembers that 13 years ago, a second stranger had helped him cremate and bury his mother and the stranger. Through Capitan Tiago's help, he is now studying to be a doctor and plans to marry his sweetheart, Julie. Chapter 7. Simon. Basilio is about to leave the forest when he sees someone approach and starts digging near the baleta tree. He announces his presence and is surprised that the man turns out to be Simon, the jeweler, who is none other than Crisostomo Ibarra. Simon convinces Basilio to cooperate in his plans of avenging the death of his mother Sisa and his brother Crispin, but Basilio remains steadfast, saying that revenge would never bring back his brother and mother. Chapter 8. Merry Christmas. It is Christmas Day and Julie wakes up early to pack her things to go to Hermana Penchang, but she forgets to greet her grandfather Tata Celo a Merry Christmas. After Julie leaves, Tata Celo is preoccupied with thoughts about his pretty granddaughter working as a servant and of his son Cabezang Tales, still held by bandits, and of course being alone on Christmas Day. Dwelling on all these misfortunes, he discovers that he has become dumb.
Chapter 9. Pilates. The gossip about the misfortunes of Tata Celo and his family spreads around town. and a number of people are claiming that they are not to blame for these misfortunes. The alferez of the Guardia Civil says that he was just following a government order to collect all firearms in town. The friar who has taken over Cabezang Tales' comments that if Tales had remained at home, he would have never been abducted by the bandits. Hermana Pencha merely says that God brought down hardship on Tata Celos' family because he had not taught Willie to pray properly. Chapter 10, Wealth and Want. Simon visits Cabezang Tales' house to sell his jewelry to the rich inhabitants of San Diego and Tiani. Cabezang Tales is convinced to sell his daughter's locket, but decides to get his daughter's permission first. The following day, Simon discovers that his revolver has been stolen by Tales. News circulates in the town that 3 persons have been murdered, the fire administrator as well as the new tenant and his wife. A piece of paper with the word Tales is written in blood is found near the dead tenant's wife. Chapter 11, Los Banos. On the last day of December, the Governor General and his advisors, together with some friars, are taking a rest in Los Banos. After the game of cards, the Governor General asks his advisor's opinion about the students' proposal to put up a self-sufficient Spanish academy. There is a disagreement of opinions, so no decision is made. Afterwards, the Governor General orders the release of Tata Celo, who has been arrested by the Guardia Civil in place of his son, Cabezang Tales. Chapter 12 and 13. Placido Penitente and the class in physics. Placido enters the class in physics conducted by Padre Milion. The class has no laboratory equipment, while the instruments bought by the university are never used. At a class visitation, Placido argues with the professor when he gets a bad mark, even if he had been marked as being absent. From disgust and frustration, Placido Penitente walks out of the class.
Chapter 14. In the House of the Students. Arriving at the school dormitory, Makaraig announces that the decision to issue the permit for building the academy has been passed to a commission headed by Don Custodio. The students then devise schemes to influence Don Custodio or Senor Pasta, a lawyer, to give a favorable decision. Isagani volunteers to persuade Senor Pasta to support and to endorse their project. Chapter 15. Senor Pasta. Isagani approaches Senor Pasta to persuade him to support and endorse the students' project. Not wishing to provoke the friars who are against the project, Senor Pasta decides to oppose it and convince Isagani instead to focus on his studies. Chapter 16. The Tribulations of a Chinese. Quiroga, a Chinese businessman, gives a dinner in his house. Friars, government officials, soldiers, and merchants attend the dinner. Simon asks Quiroga to store some rifles in his warehouse as exchange for the portion of the debt that the Chinese merchant owes him.
Chapter 17. The Cappu Affair. 12 people leave Quiroga's house to watch Mr. Leeds' show. Padre Camora ogles the young woman at the fair and gets more excited when he sees Paulita Gomez, Isagani's rich and beautiful sweetheart. Chapter 18. Lecture Domain. Pensive, Padre Camora, Padre Salvi, and others enter the tent of Mr. Leeds to watch his show. Mr. Leeds presents to them a box containing some ashes that had been found in one of the pyramids of Egypt. Upon shouting a magic word, the ashes come to life and the Sphinx named Imhotep narrates his sad story. A priest, he says, was in love with his sweetheart, and in order to eliminate him, he was implicated in a rebellion. Imhotep was then arrested but was killed in a lake while trying to escape. Seeing the parallelism between Imhotep's story and that of Crisostomo Ibarra, Padre Salvi faints when the Sphinx starts calling him murderer, slanderer, and hypocrite. Chapter 19. The Fuse. Placido Penitente meets and joins Simon in his trip around the city. Placido learns that Simon is organizing a revolution in order to rescue Maria Clara from the convent. Chapter 20. The Arbiter. Don Custodio studies his decision regarding the proposal of the university students. He is undecided, since he wants to please the friars who are against the proposal, while at the same time desires to give the students a chance to study the Spanish language. Senor Pasta and Pepe the dancer have been consulted, but they do not give him a concrete answer. After much contemplation, he arrives at the decision